60 Minutes Overtime.
The wildfire that torched a historic Hawaiian town in August was as ferocious as it was fast. Hurricane-force winds blew the inferno across the sun-scorched landscape, igniting all of Lahaina on the island of Maui. It took less than an hour. As we found when we reported there for this week's 60 Minutes, another devastating wildfire could happen again in the Aloha State. That is, of course, unless there's a change in the conditions that led to this year's blaze. Among them, a dearth of firefighters and an overabundance of dry grass. The hills above Lahaina were once lush with sugarcane fields like this.
Hawaii's economic life depends in great part on its sugar crop.
But production of that crop, once the state's largest, has ended. Hawaii's last sugarcane harvest was in 2016. Instead, the hills are now overrun by drought-resistant grasses brought there for cattle grazing. So how much of this is native to Hawaii?
None of it.
Mike Walker is the top fire protection official at the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources. He's been warning about these grasses and the danger of a catastrophic wildfire for years. So what happens when you introduce all these non-native grasses to a place like this?
They're going to burn eventually if there's an ignition on the land. And 99% of the ignitions we have here in Hawaii are human-caused.
When this burns, like it did in the last fire, how quickly does it come back?
Well, actually, if you're in an area where there was helicopter drops or any use of water on the fire, within days, another species called guinea grass will actually be sprouting up as you're still fighting the fire. So it's really quick. They respond to water really quickly.
That quickly?
Yeah.
And so then that's just more fuel for the next fire?
Correct.
So this is what kind of grass?
So this is buffalo grass, and you can see that most of the biomass that's above the ground is really just nice and crispy and falling apart. But if you get down lower to right above the roots, you can see that there's green there. You know, it's just waiting
to grow again.
Yep.
What can you do to make sure that this isn't a tinderbox?
Well, a lot of the land right now is just unmanaged. We really do need a return to managed lands, these managed landscapes. You know, humans have created this issue, and it's not going to be solved without human intervention as well.
Looking forward, what's the risk here and on other islands?
As long as we have these grasslands that aren't being managed, the risk remains high. We're in an extreme drought here on West Maui, and a lot of the rest of the state is either abnormally dry or in moderate to extreme drought. But even when you do have those greening up periods, if it's followed again by another dry season, it's just ready to go once again.
So it could happen again?
Yeah, it could happen anytime.
When it does, Maui's firefighters might be overmatched once more. On a typical shift, there are 60 to 70 firefighters spread across 14 fire stations. Bobby Lee is the president of Hawaii's chapter for the International Association of Firefighters.
When you look at what our firefighters have been doing, especially over the last few years, they've been having more wildfires, and they haven't been able to add any fire companies for the last 20 years. So you look at the increase of people that have come to this island. You have the plantations that shut down, and so a lot more abandoned land, wildfire land, and our firefighting force has been the same for the last 20 years.
You know, if you're in California and you're fighting wildfire, you can call in the states next door and get backup. You can't really do that here.
You can have a fire like the Paradise Fire. Within 2-3 days, you can get 5,000 firefighters on scene. Within 10, 12, 13 days, you can get 10, 15,000 plus firefighters, apparatuses, resources, equipment, all on scene, you know, coming from other states. When you live on an island like us, where we don't have bridges connecting the islands, we don't have a ferry system that can help us, you know, jump between islands quickly, what we have on island is all we have. That's it. These crews were all on their own. It took 2 days to get 34 firefighters here on island from Honolulu
2 days?
by air. It took 2 days. Without fire trucks, without that level of resources, just to get some manpower here to help. And that's just the reality of what we live with over here.
Why aren't there more firefighters on this island?
I think a lot of times it just comes down to money. You know, until you get something like this, it's not important.
Now that this fire has gotten people's attention, Mike Walker hopes their minds are forever changed about Hawaii's fire problem.
I never thought this would happen. I thought that the worst case scenario we were going to see is people's houses were going to start burning. I never imagined this amount of loss of life and loss of a town that's historic. It was once the capital of Hawaii, and it's got so much history in it. We forget about this, and there's something really wrong with us.